The road to the White House, now in its final twists and turns for 2016. The journey began more than a year and a half ago.
So I'm hitting the road to earn your vote, and I hope you'll join me on this journey.
I am officially running for President of the United States.
Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump won support of their parties and faced off in debates. And once again, Florida hangs in the balance as a crucial key to victory. But the Sunshine State battles go beyond the presidency as Senator Marco Rubio fights to hang on to his seat against challenger Patrick Murphy. And your votes could bring slot machines to Duval County. It's just one of the decisions waiting for you when you go to the polls tomorrow. From Channel 4, the local station, this is Election 2016.
And checking out our Election 2016 countdown clock, less than 11 hours until the polls open in most of Florida and all of Georgia and several other states. The time for the candidates to campaign is almost over. Good evening, everyone. Judging by the surge in early voting, this may turn out to be the biggest election in modern times when it comes to citizen participation. Google reports a 223% increase in searches about voting compared to just 4 years ago. That may be because the presidential race is going down to the wire, according to the newest polls.
Tonight we have the latest Bloomberg poll just released today on the boards. In a head-to-head matchup, it has Hillary Clinton at 46% and Donald Trump at 43%.
Here at home, looking at the latest poll of Florida voters from Quinnipiac University, Clinton has a slight lead over Trump, 46% to 45%. Gary Johnson is at 2%. Jill Stein is at 1%. Tonight, our News 4 Jax team will be digging into this presidential race as well as state and local contests, giving you a look at what to expect tomorrow on Election Day. We start with News 4 Jax political reporter Kent Justice with the latest from the presidential campaign trail. Kent?
Yeah, Tom and Mary, with a race this tight, it really could come down to voter turnout, and specifically, which one of the candidates gets more of their supporters to show up. On the final day of campaigning, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump hitting the trail at breakneck speed and focused on the key battlegrounds.
In Pennsylvania, it's all about Election Day.
Clinton campaigning today in the crucial toss-up state of North Carolina, also going to Michigan and Pennsylvania, where Clinton's lead has narrowed in recent weeks. President Obama, one of Clinton's biggest assets on the trail, appearing in Michigan and North Carolina before joining Hillary Clinton, former President Bill Clinton, and the First Lady for a Philadelphia rally.
This is the last day of our campaign. Who would have believed this?
Donald Trump hitting 5 states today. He'll also be in Pennsylvania, Michigan, also Florida, North Carolina, and New Hampshire. Donald Trump also had campaign surrogates crisscrossing the country. I spoke with Dr. Ben Carson this afternoon as he was in Jacksonville to thank Trump campaign volunteers.
The two parties are going in 180-degree opposite directions. So they're going to take America in those directions, and it's not going to be for 4 or 8 years because you have the Supreme Court and the federal courts. So we're talking generations.
Sunday night's bombshell from FBI Director James Comey saying in a letter to Congress that they've completed their review of the newly discovered emails, and they found nothing to change their conclusions from July, that Hillary Clinton should not face criminal charges. It has both campaigns reacting to the last-minute news.
We're glad to get that news, but not surprised.
Hillary Clinton should not even be allowed to run for the presidency of the United States. With what's happening with our justice, our country is a laughingstock.
With that news coming just a day and a half before polls open Tuesday, it's unclear how it could play in voters' minds. The Associated Press estimates that at least 43 million people have already cast their ballots. I think that number could reach 50 million, which would be nearly 40% of all the votes cast in 2016. Tom?
Thank you, Ken. On the final day of campaigning, both candidates are making multiple stops from morning till night. Hillary Clinton was in Allendale, Michigan, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and Raleigh. Donald Trump was in Sarasota, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Manchester, New Hampshire, Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Raleigh. Both candidates also had their campaign surrogates on the road as well. Tomorrow night, there is one number to keep in mind at all times: 270.
That is the tally of electoral votes a candidate must collect by winning states across the country. Bruce Hamilton will be adding up those numbers for us tomorrow night. He has a look at where the projections stand right now.
First thing we need to talk about is the magic number. 270 electoral votes puts either Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump in the White House. So what are electoral votes? There's a misnomer. Some people think that the U.S. Constitution provides for the popular vote to elect the President of the United States. Not the way it works. Basically, each state has proportioned a certain number of electoral votes. It's based on congressional districts. For instance, Florida has 29. So if the popular vote goes to one particular candidate, all those electoral votes go to that same candidate. As you take a look at this board, those that are outlined in red right now are pretty definitively Trump territory. The ones in blue belong to Hillary Clinton. The ones in white, somewhat undecided. That said, all but 5 of those states that you see in white right now have been fairly decided. There are 5 truly battleground states. They include New Hampshire, North Carolina, Florida with its 29 votes, which historically has had a very close vote throughout the past couple of election cycles, also Arizona and Nevada. Any one of those 5 states has the potential to swing this election and put either Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump in the White House. This has the potential to be a very late night, and according to some political analysts, we may not know who the President of the United States is when we go to bed Tuesday night.
In the primary election a little more than 2 months ago, more people voted early or by mail in Duval County than voted at the polls on Election Day. It's more proof of how big early voting has become here in Florida.
Statewide, at the end of early voting, turnout is already at 50%. As for our local counties, Duval County is at 51%, St. Johns County 57%, Clay County 51%, and Nassau County 54%. Channel 4's Jim Piggott is at the Duval Supervisor of Elections office to show us how workers there are getting ready for Election Day. Jim?
Well, you know, precinct workers were out late this afternoon and this evening setting up the polls, getting them ready to open. They plan to open those doors at 7 a.m. tomorrow, and they hope that everything is going to be working. Now, I talked to the Supervisor of Elections here in Duval County, Mike Hogan, today. This is a big election for him, one of the first really big ones that he is going to be working with at this point. He hopes that everything is in order, that everything is ready to go. But he thinks since so many people have voted early or by absentee, 50% here in Duval County, and that's a record, he doesn't believe that there are going to be long lines. This is Precinct 211 off New Berlin Road. The voting booths are set up and the machines are in place. And you think this election a lot more people are voting?
I think a lot more people voting. I worked early voting. A lot more people first-time voters, 35 up of age.
First time?
First-time voters.
Supervisor of Elections Mike Hogan says they have backup equipment in place should there be a problem when the polls open tomorrow.
But we've checked all of our stuff before it went to the field. We double-check everything. The reason we go through that routine in the morning, as I mentioned to you, our launch time is to make sure everything is up and working. We have equipment in the field to replace equipment in the field. So we've got it staged all over town.
This is going to be a closely watched election, particularly since Donald Trump has been speaking out about possible rigged elections and voter fraud. The Duval Elections Canvassing Board has been meeting and reviewing the absentee ballots that have had problems. Well, they are making duplicate ballots. That's where people have voted for more than one person or issue in a race. Those ballots are rejected by the machine and have to be remade to either leave out that race and count everything else, or if it's clear what the voter intended to do, that race will be counted as well. And Hogan says if you're going to the polls tomorrow, remember this.
Make sure they have proper ID and a signature. And remember, the ballot is two-sided. It warns all the voters on both sides.
Couple of things you need to know about tomorrow. If you can't make it to your precinct, you can still vote by absentee, but you have to come downtown here to the Supervisor of Elections office. This is on Monroe Street. Fill out an affidavit as to why you can't make it to your precinct, and they will allow you to vote absentee. But you have to do that by 7 p.m. Right at 7 p.m., they're going to lock those doors, even if there's a line of people waiting to do that. And if you have an absentee ballot at home and you plan to maybe just drop it off at your precinct, you can't do that. You've got to bring it downtown here and get it in here before 7 p.m. And if you're in line at any other precinct tomorrow, well, the thing to remember, if you're in line at 7 o'clock, they'll bring somebody out to the end of the line, and all of those people will be allowed to vote. It's going to be a crowded day. They know that there's going to be lines, and there could be some problems as a result of that. Just think ahead. We're live downtown. Jim Pickett, Channel 4, the local station.
Thank you, Jim. We've been digging a little deeper into the early voting numbers here in our area.
The state and individual counties release head counts of Republican and Democrat early voters, as well as those lumped together as third-party and independent voters. Joy has a breakdown for us now. Joy?
Well, Tom, Mary, we were going to start with the statewide numbers. 2,560,000 Democrats have already voted, and 2,472,000 Republicans, they have already voted. Now, that gives Democrats about an 88,000 vote advantage. Another 1.3 million, as you can see up here, who are either not affiliated with a party or affiliated with a third party. They have already cast their ballots. All right, we are going to move on now to, oh, this is not what we wanted to move on to. Let me see if I can get this to go this way. Here we go. Duval County, that's what we want. Duval County, take a look. About 127,000 Democrats have already voted, with 123,000 Republicans. They have already voted. And then we have nearly 49,000 voters who aren't registered with one of the two other major parties. They voted as well. Heading south now to Clay County, we're going to take a look at the numbers. Republicans, they have dominated the early voting numbers there. Take a look, 45,000. Democrats are at 15,000 votes, and the others who are not affiliated with any particular party, about 13,000. Let's go down now to St. Johns County. Take a look at those numbers. A similar picture. Republicans outnumber Democrats in terms of registered voters 2-1, and that trend really held true with early voting as well. 56,000 Republicans have already voted, 23,000 Democrats have voted, and about 18,000 not affiliated with any other party. Finally, we're going to take a look at Nassau County. Let's see those numbers. There were more than 21,000 Republicans who have voted already. That's roughly 3 times the number of Democrats who voted. 7,300 Democrats, as you can see here, and about 4,800 who either are part of a third party or no party cast their ballot. Again, any voter can vote for any candidate, but these stats do give you a better picture of how the parties are turning out their votes. Tom, Mary?
Thank you, Joy. Now, for those of you who did not vote early, we want to take you through what you need to know when you go to your precinct tomorrow to cast your ballot.
First, polls open at 7 a.m. and you can vote until 7 p.m. You will need to show a current and valid picture and signature ID. If your photo and signature are not available on an ID, you'll be able to vote, but with a provisional ballot, which will be accepted once you show proof that you are a registered voter. And if you're not clear about the candidates and issues on your ballot, check out our voter's guide on news4jax.com. On our website, you'll also find a link to the state website where you can check the location of your polling precinct.
Still to come in our Election 2016 special. We're taking you behind the scenes, showing you how we'll track developments from around the country as we wait to learn who will be elected president. And Senator Marco Rubio, hoping to return to D.C. for a second term. Now he's trying to fight off a challenge from Democratic Congressman Patrick Murphy. Next.
Thank you.
Right behind the race for president, the most closely watched race here in Florida is for one of our U.S. Senate seats. After ending his presidential campaign earlier this year, Republican Senator Marco Rubio announced he'd seek re-election after all.
Democratic Congressman Patrick Murphy of Palm Beach Gardens is trying to unseat Rubio. Taking a look at one of the latest polls in the race from Quinnipiac University, Rubio is at 50%, Murphy at 43%. Rubio has led in every poll for the past few months, except for a few that had the two tied. Channel 4's Tarek Miner and Ethan Callaway are both in South Florida covering this race. We begin with Tarek, who has a look at Rubio's re-election bid. Tarek?
And good evening, Tom. We are live in West Miami. We're about 10 miles away from Miami International Airport, an area where Senator Marco Rubio is expected to return to this evening. It has been a very busy day for him, as you can imagine, traveling and campaigning in Tampa, also in Orlando along the I-4 corridor, making that final plea to voters to choose him over Patrick Murphy who also has South Florida roots. After a failed presidential campaign, it was Republican leaders in Washington, D.C. who reportedly talked Marco Rubio into going back on his pledge not to seek re-election to the U.S. Senate. Since jumping into the race in June, Rubio has led virtually every poll, but the polls have tightened, and the race against two-term Congressman Patrick Murphy is now closer than ever before.
We don't want to run up the debt of this country. We don't want to spend money unwisely. We want the money to be targeted where it belongs.
Marco Rubio's message in the final hours of the campaign is, "We can't afford to be out-hustled," a statement meant to energize voters to keep the enthusiasm up. Rubio's been encouraging early voting the weeks leading up to November 8th, and he's trying to unite conservatives, while at the same time making the case that in the Senate, he will get the job done. On the campaign trail, Rubio's been hammering down on issues like economic development, affordable college education, and maintaining the nation's military strength. He's also campaigning on his work here in Jacksonville to get help for the residents of the Eureka Gardens apartment complex, pointing to his push for investigations of the complex's owners and HUD.
HUD has an inspection process that they follow to inspect whether a facility is safe. This facility, Eureka Gardens, passed the inspection. Not once, but twice, repeatedly passed this inspection. And anyone who visits there and looks at it knows immediately that is not a place where people should be living.
Rubio called the owner of the Global Ministries Foundation a slumlord, striking a chord with Republicans and Democrats, promising a bipartisan approach to reform and change if he's reelected into the Senate. Rubio's been criticized by his opponent, Patrick Murphy, of being a missing senator because of his frequent absences from Senate votes and hearings during his run for president. Now, Marco Rubio's political future has also been an issue in this campaign. His competitor, Patrick Murphy, has made allegations that Rubio is simply running so he can run for president again in the year 2020. But in their debate, Rubio pledged that if elected as the senator, he will stay the entire 6 years. I'm Tarek Biter, live from West Miami, Channel 4, the local station.
Thank you, Tarek. Now, Democrat Patrick Murphy has spent 2 terms in the House representing his district, which stretches from West Palm to Fort Pierce.
In August, he soundly defeated 4 other Democrats to win the party spot in tomorrow's Senate election. Channel 4's Ethan Calloway is joining us now live from Palm Beach Gardens, where Murphy hopes to be celebrating a victory tomorrow night. Ethan?
That's right, Tom, and beating Rubio has been seen as a challenge from the very beginning, but it has been something that Patrick Murphy has said he can do, and to watch him on the campaign trail, he looks and sounds like a candidate who can do just that. Tomorrow night, that's exactly what he hopes to see happen. All across the state, Congressman Patrick Murphy has been hitting the pavement, getting the word out on why voters should choose him over incumbent Marco Rubio. The South Florida native represents the state's 18th congressional district. Murphy was elected in 2012, taking office in 2013. He officially announced his bid for the Senate in March. During a campaign stop in Miami-Dade County, the congressman addressed what's shaping up to be a lower turnout among African-American voters this year compared to the record numbers seen in 2008. Those votes critical to the Democratic ticket.
We are still very optimistic that those numbers are going to get to those record levels again. President Obama, is making a point to make sure people understand, all voters understand, this is a critical election that we have to get out there and vote to really move beyond his legacy and protect it.
Unlike his opponent, who's distanced himself from Donald Trump, Murphy has aligned himself with the top of the ticket, fully supporting Hillary Clinton and vice versa. But it's not just Democratic voters he's going after at campaign events.
Half the people I spoke to seem to be Republicans, saying they're there because they want to hear what Hillary's saying, they want to hear what the president's saying, and for the first time in their life, many Republicans saying they're going to vote Democrat down ballot because they're so scared of Donald Trump and don't like people that don't have a backbone like Marco Rubio that aren't willing to stand up to him.
Jabs like that have become a staple of this Senate race. Rubio has gone after Murphy, accusing him of lying. Murphy going after Rubio for his attendance record on Capitol Hill. All as the race tightens and the campaigning continues into the final hours of the election.
I'm going to show up to work, and I'm going to be there making sure that I'm fighting for better education opportunities. And it shouldn't matter what neighborhood you're from. It should be quality and affordable education. Make sure I'm fighting to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, protecting programs like Social Security and Medicare and a woman's right to choose. And that's in stark contrast to Marco Rubio.
And you heard Murphy use that word optimistic there in that report. That is exactly the tone within his campaign, as it has been for the past several weeks. He plans to continue campaigning through Election Day tomorrow. We're live in Palm Beach Gardens tonight. Ethan Calloway, Channel 4, the local station.
Thank you, Ethan. Georgia voters are also deciding a Senate race tomorrow, although, according to the polls, it is not nearly as close as the one here in Florida.
Republican Johnny Isakson, he's seeking his third term. He faces two general election challengers, Democrat Jim Barksdale, the owner of an investment firm in Atlanta, and a Libertarian candidate, Alan Buckley, an attorney and CPA, also in Atlanta. While Isakson is expected to win, if a candidate does not get more than 50% of the vote, there will be a runoff election.
A 12-term Congresswoman's career ends with a defeat in the primary. Ahead, meet the candidates hoping to fill Corrine Brown's seat on Capitol Hill. And the first results are less than 24 hours away. A local elections expert tells us what we can expect and what we can learn from the early voting so far. Next on our Election 2016 special.
And I'm Kent Justice. Thanks for joining us for our election preview special. What we want to do right now is kind of give you a behind-the-scenes tour of all these different things that we're going to be doing for you on election night. Tom and Mary, of course, they'll be here. They'll be guiding with here are the results, here's what states are reporting, and when they are called, we'll talk about it. So results will come here. I'll be at the table as well as our political analyst, Rick Mullaney. You know him from Jacksonville University and the Public Policy Institute. He's our political analyst for the evening. And over here, I think you've got to be really tall to be at this. The whole country is represented here, and as those votes come in and as states are called for a specific candidate and party, we will peel back layers here to reveal a certain color. And so if it's going to go to Democrats, it's going to be blue, and if it's going to be Republican, there's red underneath there as well. And as we go through the night, we'll show you that so it's easy to keep track of. Once those things happen, each of those states, of course, are associated with a certain number of electoral votes. So as they come in, Bruce Hamilton is going to be here. And let's say the 29 votes from Florida come in. Are they going to go on this side of the ledger? Are they going to go over here? Bruce will be handling that, and he'll be counting them up. We'll have a running total for you. It's an easy way to see what's happening all night long. Here's something else I want you to see. On the other side of the studio, we've got some great expertise and insight for you. Jerry Holland. This is the man who used to be the supervisor of elections for Duval County. Jerry, we're so glad you're with us, and we're going to get your expertise, your insight, your experience. What's the experience like for those two general elections that you did when you were supervisor of elections here? It's got to be a lot of anxiety or anticipation?
Oh, there's 67 supervisor of elections, and they all go through the same intense moments of will the precincts open on time? Will there be any equipment failure? What kind of turnout will there be? All those issues are going through their minds tonight, and are they prepared and having the backup also?
Yeah, what are the kind of things that you'll be looking for as we go through the evening tomorrow? Obviously, you know Duval County. You know the state of Florida really well. Nationally, what are the kinds of things that will stand out for you?
We're going to be looking, obviously, throughout the whole country, any of the states that will be close. Because like even in Florida's situation, if we're within probably 48,000 votes, it's a potential recount.
48,000 votes is close when it comes to Florida.
It is. And, those cases, as we look at peeling off one of the colors, they may stay white for a long time if they're that close.
Yeah, we know that Florida is a swing state. We're talking about other states like that. Is there really something that could happen in those other places like North Carolina, or could Michigan go red instead of blue, that sort of thing?
And also because of the many time zones, watching as we go across the country, do we have enough decisions before we get to the West Coast to call it, or to say we've got to wait all the way to Alaska?
Yeah, we've made a commitment to you. We're going to be on air until we've chosen a new president, so we'll see how long that takes tomorrow night, but we're glad you're with us. Jerry Holland is going to be invaluable to your experience on understanding what happens here in election 2016. Our final stop on the behind-the-scenes tour, Joy Purdy, my co-anchor at 11 o'clock. You're going to be doing, what are we calling this? This is the balance of power kind of station. What does that mean?
Yes, we're going to be watching the balance of power in the House of Representatives as well as the Senate. And if you've ever watched CNN before, you've seen an interactive map that they have. John King is one of their reporters. He's an expert with their map where he touches the map and different states light up and he'll be able to move things around. That's the same setup that we have for you here. For example, this is the U.S. House of Representatives. You can see right now 246 Republicans, 186 Democrats, 3 seats are vacant. During the night, we'll be able to change those seats. As they change, the numbers will tally for us, depending on whether or not the seat changes from Republican to Democrat. And we'll be able to do the same thing with the Senate. So take a look. We have the Senate set up, and another thing that we're going to be watching over here, Kent, we will be able to see the state of Florida. County by county, for example, we have the race for U.S. Senate set up here. We'll be able to punch up any county that we want and take a look at the numbers as they come in. It pops up, these numbers change. So this is the coolest thing, but a lot going on over here.
There it is, and it's because we want to be very detail-oriented for you. We want to make it easy to understand as well. That's why we put all this together, is to bring you a great Election Day experience.
Will an Election Day win bring more winning to a local poker room? Still to come, a look at the decision Duval County voters will make about allowing slot machines in their city. And behind the White House, it's the second biggest prize in Washington, control of Congress. Next, which races are the ones to watch in the battle for the U.S. Senate?
Take a look at this. You are looking right now at the world's largest political scoreboard. These, of course, are the scoreboards over at Everbank Field, and we are using them for election night and this pre-election eve report for you as well.
Tomorrow night, you'll be able to see election returns right up there on the scoreboard. What you're looking at the moment is the latest Bloomberg poll, which has Hillary Clinton up by 3% on Donald Trump on this election eve. But again, tomorrow night, drive by the stadium or look out your window if you live downtown at the stadium, and you'll be able to see election returns on the world's largest political scoreboard. And our thanks to everyone at Everbank Field for making that possible.
It is not just control of the White House that Republicans and Democrats will be battling for tomorrow. They will also be fighting for control of Congress.
While control of the House is not likely to change tomorrow night, the Senate, however, is very much in play. Right now, there are 54 Republicans and 44 Democrats in the Senate, along with 2 independents who generally join with the Democrats. In the House, the Republicans have 246 seats. Democrats have 186, and 3 are currently vacant. Every member of the House and about a third of the Senate are up for re-election. Joining us now from New York, where both Trump and Clinton will be tomorrow night, is our much-traveled election correspondent, Ryan Nobles. Ryan, thank you for being here with us. Give us your take on how you think the Senate is going to unfold tomorrow night.
Well, Tom, there's a good chance that perhaps the Senate turns out to be where the drama is tomorrow night. You know, there's certainly a scenario where Hillary Clinton picks up some wins in some of these key swing states early on in the evening, and we know who wins the presidency, but the Senate is still very much in doubt. So I think there's a couple of key races that are worth keeping an eye on throughout the night. Missouri, New Hampshire. I think that race in Florida is very important. But it is certainly possible that we end tomorrow night with a 50-50 deadlocked Senate, which could make things pretty interesting in Washington, D.C.
So, Ryan, with the presidential candidates voting so much focus on North Carolina, do you think that's affecting Richard Burr's re-election bid?
Yeah, I think in almost all of these close Senate races, the presidential election is having an effect on those down ballot races. And, you know, Richard Burr has been in the Senate for quite a while. He is a known name in North Carolina, but he's got to run alongside Donald Trump, and that's good and bad. It's good for him because it brings out passionate Republican support, but it's bad for him because Donald Trump is obviously a toxic candidate to some. So right now, you know, the polls show that Richard Burr has around a 1 or 2 point lead right now in North Carolina. But if there is an enormous Latino vote that comes out at the last second, which would more than likely be in opposition to Donald Trump, that could really help Deborah Ross's chances. So any race that's within the margin of error, you have to assume that there'll be some sort of drag by the presidential contest, and North Carolina is no different.
Ryan, how about Nevada? What are the GOP's chances of taking the seat being vacated by Harry Reid, who's retiring?
Well, initially the Republicans were pretty bullish on Nevada. They felt pretty good about their candidate, Joe Heck, who's somewhat of an independent voice, even though he is a Republican. But Nevada's been a little strange this year. It's normally a swing state. It's a place where Donald Trump thought he could do well. He has a presence there, of course, with a hotel and casino in Las Vegas. But their candidate, the Democrat there, Catherine Cortez Masto, has run a very strong campaign. The polls show her ahead. And again, just like North Carolina, if there's an enormous Latino vote, which the early vote numbers there show us that Latino voters have come out strong, that could be a drag on Hecht's campaign. But Nevada is certainly another one of these states where you're going to want to keep a close eye on it in terms of the balance of power in the Senate. And I think it's also important to point out, like in Florida, where you have a name like Marco Rubio, an established person, an established name, he can run his own campaign. He can separate himself from Donald Trump to a certain extent. Burr can do that in North Carolina as well. It's a little more difficult for Hecht to do that as a first-time statewide candidate in Nevada. So that's where the drag from the presidential ticket might be a little bit more cumbersome.
Ryan, there seems to be much less suspense in the House, where Democrats would need a net gain of 30 seats to gain control. Can you give us an estimate of how many of those 30 the Democrats are likely to pick up? And is there any chance that the Republicans could surprise everybody and add to their present majority?
I think it's very unlikely that the Republicans add to their majority, but they're probably not going to take huge losses. They might give up a net 8 to 10 seats, depending on how some of these races break. Now, the one variable that we can't account for is some sort of a major wave election. You know, we saw that, for instance, back in Newt Gingrich's days with the contract with America in 1994 in the midterms after Bill Clinton, where just the Republican vote was overwhelming and it carried all these marginal candidates over the finish line. You know, if for some reason Hillary Clinton's vote is beyond what we expect it to be, then maybe that brings with it a wave that then puts the Republican majority in danger. Likewise, if perhaps Donald Trump's vote is greater than what we expect it to be, maybe that helps them add seats. But I think at the end of the day, you're going to see Republicans giving up like 8 to 10 seats, I would imagine, in some of these marginal states, especially states that are swing states where the Clinton campaign is actively involved. And even some of these states where you see kind of marginal suburban districts where there are a lot of suburban white women in play. That's an area and a group of voters that Donald Trump has had a hard time with. So at the end of the day, Republicans still in control, but perhaps not by as big of margins.
All right, Ryan Nobles reporting to us live from New York City. We look forward to hearing from you more tomorrow night. Thank you, Ryan.
As we said, every seat in the House is on the ballot this year, as they are every 2 years.
And we already know our local delegation will have at least 2 new faces on District 4, the other in District 5. In District 3, which includes Clay, Bradford, Putnam, Union, and Alachua counties, Republican Congressman Ted Yoho is seeking his 3rd term against 2 challengers, Democrat Ken McGurn and unaffiliated candidate Tom Wells.
District 4 now includes portions of Duval and St. Johns counties and all of Nassau. Republican Congressman Andrew Crenshaw is retiring from the House. Former Jacksonville Sheriff John Rutherford won a 7-way Republican primary. He now faces Democrat David Brutally and unaffiliated candidate Gary Koniz.
And part of St. Johns County, as well as Flagler County, is in District 6, and that's where Republican Ron DeSantis is seeking his 3rd term. He faces a challenge from Democrat Bill McCullough. A second longtime member of our local congressional delegation will not be returning to Capitol Hill next year.
24 years after Corrine Brown was first elected to the U.S. House, she lost in the Democratic primary. Brown faced a dramatically redrawn district, as well as the cloud of a 22-count federal indictment, which included charges of fraud and filing false federal income tax returns. In August, she was defeated by former state Senator Al Lawson. Lawson now faces the Republican in the race, Glo Smith. Channel 4's Bakari Savage has a look at these 2 candidates.
Tailgating at the Rains versus Ribault High School football game, one of the biggest rivalries in the state, sets the backdrop for the final campaigning between Glo Smith and Al Lawson. The District 5 seat they're competing for had been held by Corrine Brown for years, until she lost the primary while under indictment on federal fraud charges. Those charges are on the minds of these candidates.
I think when you look at that part of what's going on with the Congresswoman, and you have to weigh it out with what she's done for historical black colleges, you know, EWC, all the way through this entire district, and honestly through the state of Florida. And so I just kind of weigh it out, and I let the people judge. Right now, we just got to move forward on what is real.
The situation that exists with Representative Brown and the one door is very unfortunate because, you know, you really don't want to rob college kids for the opportunity to attend, because that's how all of us was able to make a transition to where we are today.
Lawson, a former state senator from the Tallahassee area, says that a vote for him is a vote for someone with a proven track record.
Well, over the last, 28 years in serving, I fought very hard for state employees, which we have a lot of in our district, to make sure they get pay raises, to keep their health insurance costs low.
Smith, who touts a 30-year career in public service and entrepreneurship, says that she has a track record that includes positive results for communities in need.
I had the opportunity to be part of opening up a resource center in Green Cove Springs that is still up and going today, that have served over 5,000 children and families, where they can come and look for a job, they can get counseling, mental health counseling, they can meet with other professionals, they can get job skills there.
Although Smith and Lawson live on opposite ends of the newly redrawn District 5, both say they're committed to all of its constituents. I'm Bakari Savage, Channel 4, the local station.
A local race for the Florida House went through some upheaval in the final weeks before the election.
For 6 years, Reggie Fullwood represented District 13, which covers a wide swath of Duval County. In September, Fullwood pleaded guilty to federal charges of wire fraud and failing to file his income tax return. He had to resign his seat as a result and end his re-election bid. However, since ballots were already being printed, his name still appears on the ballot. Local Democrats replaced Fullwood with Tracy Davis, the runner-up in the August primary. A notice in the voting booth informs voters that a vote for Fullwood will actually count for Davis. She is up against the winner of the Republican primary, Pastor Mark Griffin. Over the past few elections, social media has steadily grown as a way for candidates to reach voters and as a place for social media users to talk about the candidates.
We have been following trends on Twitter to see which candidate is generating the most conversation. Joy is here now with a look at where things stand on this election eve. Joy?
Tom, Mary, take a look behind me. We are taking a look at what we call the social pulse of the presidential race. You've looked at tweets about the election. Some people saying positive things, others negative. We're just going to take a look at the positive tweets tonight, analyzing those to get a sense of how each candidate is really being favored on Twitter. These percentages are based on tweets that were made within the last 30 minutes, so it really is a flash frame of what's being said right now on Twitter. We're going to start with a national picture breaking down the positive tweets between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. As you can see, they're changing as I'm speaking. So this is being tabulated right now. Donald Trump nationwide positive tweets, 70% to Hillary Clinton's 30%. Now take a look at Northeast Florida, what they are saying in our area. Right now on Twitter, 100% of the tweets are positive in Trump's favor. We also broke them down, taking a look across Florida, men versus women. Positive tweets from men. You can see 56% of the positive tweets by men are being made about Trump, 44% for Clinton. Take a look at women. It's the opposite. More women are tweeting positively about Hillary Clinton versus 42% with Donald Trump. Tomorrow night, Stacey Spanos will be tracking these breakdowns as well as the tweets about the U.S. Senate race and across the state of Florida. Florida's Amendment 2 involving medical marijuana, so you'll want to look for her report on that. Tom, Mary?
There's no question, Florida's the Sunshine State. But what's behind a ballot question over solar power? We're breaking down Amendment 1. Plus, giving people in Jacksonville a new way to gamble. Why the backers of an effort to bring slot machines to the city say it's a winning idea. Next on our Election 2016 special.
Tomorrow, Duval County voters will decide whether to allow slot machines here in Jacksonville. Earlier this year, the City Council voted to put that question as County Referendum number 1 on the November ballot.
If it passes, the change would involve only one place in the city, the Best Bet Poker Room at Regency. Backers say it would mean hundreds of new jobs, but critics say the city doesn't need more gambling. Channel 4's Scott Johnson has a look at both sides.
So far, the push to legalize slot machines at the Best Bet across from the Regency Mall has gained a lot of traction politically. First in June, all members of the City Council, except one, voted to put the referendum on the ballot. It would allow slot machines at licensed gaming facilities in the city. The only one is Best Bet, which offers poker and betting on greyhound racing at their Orange Park facility. But the support isn't only coming from City Hall.
In the upcoming election, there's something we can all agree on. A yes vote on County Referendum 1.
An ad campaign supporting Referendum 1 has hit the airwaves. It's paid for by the group Families for Safety and Prosperity. The The group brought in $1 million in 1 week, but the money came in the form of two $500,000 contributions from Jacksonville Greyhound Racing, which owns Best Bet. In talking to people who frequent the Best Bet, they favor the expansion of games to slots.
Got to bring more jobs, you know. That's what we're worried about right now, the economy bringing jobs.
But not everyone is so sure Jacksonville needs legalized slot machines.
A lot of people are addicted to things, and I think gambling may just be one of them.
It creates like less productive people, maybe.
Think it creates less productive people?
Yeah, partially. And then also on the positive side, it can kind of boost the economy a bit, create a lot of jobs.
Proponents of the referendum say it could help revitalize the struggling Regency area. The ad campaign claims adding slot machines will create up to 2,000 jobs, which will average $50,000 a year. And the slot machines wouldn't just mean a payout for the winners. Under the proposal, the city would also get 1.5% of all revenues from the slots.
One issue that's been looming over the entire referendum is a Supreme Court case. Right now, Florida Supreme Court is looking at a case that will decide whether local cities and counties, like Jacksonville, can override state gambling laws and legalize slot machines. If the court votes no, the result of the referendum won't matter. Scott Johnson, Channel 4, the local station.
All Florida voters face decisions on 4 proposed constitutional amendments in this general election.
Amendment 1 deals with solar power, and it's a question that's had some voters confused. Channel 4's Janice Harris looks into what the question means.
If a proposed amendment about solar power sounds familiar, you're not mistaken. There was an amendment on the August primary ballot and it passed. Now there's another proposal, Amendment 1, sometimes known as the Smart Solar Initiative. A divided Florida Supreme Court approved the ballot's wording in a 4-3 vote on March 31st this year. Commercials in favor of the amendment have been airing on TV over the last few weeks.
Vote yes on Amendment 1 for the sun.
Skirvin Watson, a spokesman for the group supporting Amendment 1, says supporters of Amendment 1 say it puts the government in position to regulate solar and says opponents of the amendment are trying to keep the government out of their solar power dealing.
If it becomes obvious that people who don't choose solar or can't afford it have an undue burden or cost shift, if you will, to upkeep the electric grid, then government can do something about it. It doesn't dictate what they could do, but if people who can't afford solar are subsidizing those who do, basically on the upkeep of the grid, then government can simply say, look, this is unfair, we need to look at this and do something about it.
However, Tom Kimbus, the interim president of Solar Energy Industries Association, opposes Amendment 1. He says the utility companies that support Amendment 1 are only doing it because they feel threatened by solar power.
This is something new coming along in solar that for the first time in 100 years is challenging the monopoly powers of the utilities to provide electricity to homes and small businesses. That's incredibly powerful, but in the utility boardrooms, it's a threat.
According to the News Service of Florida, 4 major electric utilities have combined to give more than $20 million to support Amendment 1. They are FPL, Duke Energy, Tampa Electric, and Gulf Power. Kimbus adds the amendment is confusing and should not be on the ballot. According to Floridians for Solar Choice, several organizations oppose Amendment 1, including the Florida Wildlife Federation, Independent Green Technologies, and the Everglades Coalition. And the Florida Professional Firefighters had endorsed the amendment, something touted in a campaign ad. But Friday, the union pulled its endorsement and asked to be taken out of the commercials.
And now the other question on the Florida ballot gaining a lot of attention is Amendment 2, which would expand the use of medical marijuana.
A previous effort 2 years ago to change the Constitution fell just short of the 60% voter approval needed to pass. The 2016 version of the proposal would require parental consent before doctors can recommend medical marijuana for children. It would also expand the list of debilitating conditions that qualify for treatment, and doctors would be allowed to recommend medical marijuana for patients with other debilitating medical conditions that are comparable. However, critics say that leeway could essentially legalize all marijuana use in our state.
Between the presidency, the Senate race, House races, and more, there's no shortage of questions to answer about this year's election.
Kent is joining us again with some perspective from two local political pundits. Kent?
Yeah, so let's start with the introductions. Dr. Michael Bender from the University of North Florida and the Public Opinion Research Laboratory. Appreciate your time and insights. And Dr. John Newman, local pastor and a political consultant. So let's start here. What are the key issues when it comes to election night in your mind?
Turnout, and did I say
all three
turnout?
of those?
Absolutely. I think that that's going to be critical, of course, as to who winds up coming out with the victory. And I think also another issue is going to be watching to make sure that there aren't any kind of shenanigans or kind of intimidation going on that there are some concerns about in some communities as to what's going to happen at the polls.
Communities outside Florida, or are you talking about Florida specifically?
I'm speaking specifically in Florida.
Yeah, we know that the Department of Justice has sent some monitors to different counties in Florida. Dr. Bender, what do you think? What are the key issues on election night for you?
It's hard to argue with who shows up at the polls being so important. I think we're expecting pretty high turnout here in Florida, but nationally as well. Is that something that the Clinton campaign can capitalize on, particularly among African Americans and Latinos? Or is there this hidden Trump vote within the Democratic Party that maybe hasn't had a voice in the last few elections, that's maybe turning over, even though registered Democrats coming over and voting for Trump? That'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, and you mentioned that we were talking before we came out here, that it's hard to really know that there's some, hey, well, we know that there are some people who are registered Republicans now, but they're really voting for Hillary.
Absolutely, because, you know, again, we were talking before about there being some speculation about how many Republicans are voting for Hillary. But there are going to be an awful lot of registered Democrats, particularly as you move west in between, you know, Jacksonville and Tallahassee, then after Tallahassee going towards Pensacola. That's primarily Trump country. And I don't think they've changed registrations. I think they're going to be voting as conservative Democrats for Donald Trump in many instances.
So the thing that draws people to such amazing turnout, even early voting so far, that half of the electorate in Florida has already turned out, essentially, is the presidential race. But absolutely, pretty important, we've got a Senate race, we've got the individual congressional races. Where do you think that stands in terms of the Senate contest right now?
I think Rubio's firmly in control. I think he's going to win relatively easily. And I think this speaks to something that's been going on across the country because so much attention's been paid to Trump and Clinton. Yes. Down ballot races haven't seen that. We have a Republican incumbent who ran for the presidency, said he was quitting the Senate, came back to run against an up-and-coming Democrat that's gotten zero attention in a swing state that might determine the balance of power in the Senate. And it's gotten no attention because Trump and Clinton have taken all the air out of the room. And I think that bodes well for incumbents with name recognition, not only here in Florida for state house races and Congress seats, but also across the country.
Is it as simple as we know Donald Trump has gone after a certain part of the electorate? Is it as simple as saying Hillary Clinton has to turn out minorities, the non-white votes, and she'll win? Is it that simple?
Well, statistically in 2008 and 2012, it kind of showed that the white vote by itself aggregately is shrinking. And there's a need for coalition politics. That's why I think in the Republicans' autopsy, so to speak, after 2012, they recognized we've got to reach out to other constituencies to broaden our base. Well, Donald Trump did not do that.
The complete opposite.
And so, and you have a phenomenal, almost exponential outcry from the Latinos, and their turnout is reflecting that. And the Hillary campaign and Democrats are very happy with the turnout of Latinos, and African Americans will turn out for Hillary Clinton. Don't doubt that.
And one last thought, what did you think about these last-minute stops? We've seen both campaigns focusing on Florida and many other swing states. Is a place that traditionally has been blue, like Michigan or Pennsylvania, are they going to turn this time?
I don't think either one of those states will turn. I think it's, North Carolina's in play. Ohio, I think, is obviously in play. Florida, I think, is going to be close. But you talk about these last-minute campaign stops. The president came to UNF just last week, and the biggest turnout of any early voting site was the one library that he gave a shout-out to in his speech and gave the address to. And they had over 2,000 people show up that day. So absolutely, these little campaign stops, it matters on them.
The president's voice carries a little weight. Is that what we're saying?
He wants it badly.
We've seen a different kind of speaker and campaigner in Barack Obama here in these weeks when he's gotten out on the campaign trail. I appreciate it. I know that we're going to be able to talk tomorrow night during our election. We're going to have some other experts here with you and giving you perspective, both Democrats and Republicans, and great to get your insights as we head into what many think will be the most important election that we've seen so far.
Looking forward to it.
Can't wait.
Thank you all. And you're looking live once again at Everbank Field at the scoreboards there, where we will be showing election results this time tomorrow night.
And right now we're showing you the latest Florida poll, which has the presidential race with a 1-point margin. We'll be right back.
Taking another look now at our countdown clock, just a little more than 10 hours until the polls open here in Northeast Florida at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning.
And again, the polls will be open until 7 p.m. Remember to bring a form of ID with both your photo and a signature. If you need to learn more about who's on your ballot or find out where you go to vote, check out our voter's guide online. It's at news4jax.com/voters-guide.
And after you cast your ballot, count on Channel 4 for complete election night coverage. We start at 7 o'clock. We'll continue through the night. If you're going to be away from your TV, you can watch our coverage on your phone with our News 4 Jax mobile app. You can also find the latest results on the app as they come in.
Thanks for joining us.